Hello. Oh, it would help if I turned my mic on. Certainly. Almost as if it's a large part of streaming. Welcome. It's another day, another stream in fascist America, the United States of America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. I'm Aubri Devashrayee. Welcome and a blessing to the people who are coming here wanting to create a better world. Namaste. Good criticism, good faith criticism is welcome. Engagement with current happenings, discussion, robust discussion, this is all welcome. But if you are coming here to demean other people and dehumanize others, may a curse be upon you. I don't say this lightly. Okay, so you ever have one of those days where it seems like what can go wrong does? That is kind of what's happening today. Some of you know I've been trying to find a job for a while, a full-time job, full-time employment. This is difficult for the theybies out there, particularly in the United States of America. And yeah, just like getting out like resumes and cover letters and shit, hoping that actually gets seen by human eyes. But most of the time, things are just like filtered out. They try to, all of these systems that you have to go through try to appear like they're being inclusive, but really it's a way to exclude people. Where it's like, okay, so I don't know if this will ever get seen by a person. Now with AI already like taking away so many jobs, it just is like very disheartening at times. We had a printer, or I guess we do have a printer, but like printer technology is such bullshit. Like, where has that been at? Like, why aren't there improvements there? Because like our printer has not worked for a while, and like occasionally it will, but it's like you have to like say like a magic combination of words for it to work or something. So like going into like get it printed at a place at FedEx, like their machines weren't working. It's just like, ugh. So I'm gonna have to go back in the morning. It just is shit show sometimes. This is the exciting commentary happening today. Me just complaining about bullshit. Anyway, welcome. I did want to be talking about confronting ICE, resisting ICE raids. There have been these surges happening with ICE, and it's not an accident that this is happening as the fascist, overtly fascist administration, they are losing favor with the general public. Not like they had the hearts and minds of the majority of people to begin with. But yeah, this is ramping up. So I want to be talking about people who are on the front lines of resisting this, what we can be doing. Hello, Tan. Namaste. Good to see you. How are things with you? And then also, I want to continue talking about the history of Turtle Island. Because it's important to be focusing on decolonization. Just because there was the 4th of July, this so called Independence Day, so called celebration for so called independence. I want to continue to talk about this history because decolonizing our minds, deconstructing oppressive systems doesn't stop. We don't reach a finish line. This is a continued and continuous process. Kicking the last bit of phlegm out of my system. Good, I'm glad. I know you've been sick for a while. Productive day, that's good to hear. Today, we're going to be talking about resisting ICE, various tactics that people are engaging in, and then continuing to decolonize the history of Turtle Island. Hello, Linton. Welcome. How are you doing? This is a low energy stream for today. I was saying earlier, I'm like, the days where it seems like everything can just break down on you does? This is what has been happening. So I'm just like, ugh. Come on, please. Can we catch a break sometime? Sometime soon? That would be nice. Not to say I don't have enormous privilege in many ways, but also having more job prospects would be nice. That would be great. I know I said yesterday, I'm like, I'm gonna work on getting started earlier today. And I'm like, with everything that was going on, like all of the bullshit happening, I was like, ugh, okay, that's not happening, but we're doing what we can, you know? I still wanted to get a stream in there. But yeah, how are you both doing? I'm glad to hear that you're getting over your sickness. You've been sick for so long, Tan. Okay, let us. I think I do need a humorous video as a pick me up. Hello, Turd Bomb. Welcome. How are things with you? Okay, so as we were talking about decolonizing our minds, um, I did see this short by The Onion where they are talking about so called Independence Day. So, shall we take a look? This will be a short that we're looking at.
250 years
Oh, wait.
ago,
There we go.
a group of illiterate men would gather in these hallowed halls to scribble down what historians can now only assume were words. Words that would
Yeah. I mean, especially for younger generations not knowing cursive. Which, hey, I am thinking about teaching some cursive. Although I was like, if I'm teaching cursive, will there be people who try to copy my handwriting, pretending to be me, but then also especially with current happenings? I'm like, I don't know if that's the best idea, but I guess I can change up my handwriting enough. Anyway, these are the thoughts going through my head. Seeing the US get their ass kicked by Belgium was funny. I know, especially with all of that happening with Trump being oh, you need to make the right decision. It's like, yeah, it's not an accident that they're just bending to his will when they made up a fucking peace prize for him. Like, what does that even mean? No one knows. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well, Linton. I'm like, okay, maybe it will be an experiment of me changing up my handwriting enough that no one will actually know what it really looks like. Unless you are someone that is a subscriber for more than 3 months and you request a bracelet, then I may send you a note. But I do change up my handwriting quite a bit, especially when it comes to writing in print. Anyway, I guess that's something to be considering. Yeah, I'm glad that Belgium is moving on. Like, honestly, fuck the US. Like, who cares? I mean, for the team, that's sad for them, but I think that's good for the world to see the US be humiliated. Oh, we have some alarms going off. Okay, it stopped. Do you see what I mean? Everything that seems to be like breaking down can today. Okay, I should probably see what this is. I'll keep this playing. Rooting for Egypt? I know, that would be cool.
One day be assigned meaning.
I'll be right back.
Words and pictures. Pictures mostly. That would serve as the founding principles for a grand new experiment that would forever change the course of human history. An experiment that would produce a monstrosity so powerful, it would soon be known to the whole world by just one name. "250 years ago, a group of illiterate men would gather in these hallowed halls to scribble down what historians can now only assume were words. Words that would one day be assigned meaning. Words and pictures. Pictures mostly. That would serve as the founding principles for a grand new experiment that would forever change the course of human history. An experiment that would produce a monstrosity so powerful, it would soon be known to the whole world by just one name."
Okay, I'm guessing this repeated. Everything's okay.
حاجة كمان يعني قد ايه الشعب الفلسطيني اللي انا يعني بتمنى لهم وقلبي معاهم وروحي معاهم قد ايه فرحانين عشاننا وعشان فانا بشكرهم جدا في كل حته في كل ربنا ينجحهم وربنا ينصرهم وربنا يرحم شهدائهم.
Wow. That's cool to see. Oh no. Egypt, did they lose their match? Sad. I'm sorry. For Morocco. Damn. Mostly, I don't really have an opinion. Mostly, I just wanted the US to lose. Because I think that's good for the world. Morocco was looking like it was headed to penalties. Uh-oh. I don't know what that means, but that doesn't sound good. For your sake, I hope they win. But okay. So, I did want to get into the various tactics of what people are engaging in to resist ICE, especially with all of the surges in ICE kidnappings and traffickings that have happened most recently. Like, within like the past few days, there was like 10,000 people that this was done to. And they are also ramping up their efforts in doing this to queer people, trans people especially. So, you're just sick. Oh, that was Colombia versus Switzerland. Okay. So there's still hope, potentially. Okay, getting into the description. Chase Iron Eyes drops everything following Renee Good's killing by ICE to join protests on the streets of Minneapolis. Chase, a resident of the Pine Ridge Reservation, is a lawyer whose life and work are shaped by generations of Native American resistance. With 3,000 federal agents deployed to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of Operation Metro Surge, Chase sees the impact of the crackdown for himself. When ICE begins targeting Native Americans in Minnesota, he works to move street-level resistance into the courtroom. Chase, alongside other human rights lawyers, mounts a legal challenge and pursues class action lawsuits against ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. Native Americans Resisting ICE is a documentary film by Joy Lee and Adu. Okay, that's cool. I'd love to see that. Native Americans Resisting ICE. Yeah, because it's like, if we're talking about nativism, who is considered an immigrant when it comes to being in the US? When are we considering people to be immigrants? Because it seems like if you are not native, you are a descendant of immigrants. Have we considered this? This is why we need to be talking about these ethnic cleansing projects, like what they're doing with ICE, as a form of continued colonization. Because it seems to me that borders crossed people who already existed here rather than people crossing borders. It's not an accident that many people who have heritage indigenous to Turtle Island, but also the Americas in general, that they are the first to be targeted with this ethnic cleansing. It's a continuation of colonization. We'll speed it up just a bit. Yeah, no one is illegal on stolen land.
It is my distinct honor to greet you in the languages of the waters and the sacred lands that are now called Minnesota.
The right of the people to peacefully assemble. The right of the people.
As an attorney, I've been showing up every single day for our brothers and sisters, the good people of Minneapolis and St. Paul who are under siege right now. These are not normal times. I have to ask myself, what am I willing to give? What am I willing to give to make sure that our people, the good people of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minnesota, and the United States and tribal nations, what are we willing to give to ensure that we have the right to speak freely, the right to press, the right of association, the right to peaceably assemble to petition for redress? What am I willing to give to defend the vision and the dream of the founding fathers of the United States, who held that certain rights should be inalienable?
In December 2025, the Department of Homeland Security launched Operation Metro Surge. Thousands of federal agents were deployed to the state of Minnesota, including U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, meaning ICE officers, which the Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11. So this supposed status quo that these fascists want us to believe has always been necessary or always existed, like, this is not real. And like, I remember, it's like, I am light-skinned, but like having the last name that I do, but especially like seeing how things changed in the airport, of like, my dad would travel a lot for business, and like, you could, like, I don't know if people remember this or if you were even alive back then, at least in the US, with how like it worked with the airport. Like, you could actually go up to the gate with your family before all of this security that was instated. And I remember, even as young as I was like the age of 6 when 9/11 happened, like seeing the difference between like not only like what it was like beforehand, witnessing that, and then after all of the security additions, but also how my dad was treated. Having brown skin, he is still fairly light skinned, but visibly a brown man, and how he was constantly stopped. And yet, somehow, because of his own colonized mind, he didn't view it as being racial profiling. It's like, oh, they're just being careful. That's like, okay. All that shit is all the more deplorable considering how many natives have served for the US military. Yeah, and also just like how people are forced a lot of the time of like with college being so expensive, of like military service, like the US military is part of this larger like colonizer force. But when people feel like there are limited options, or when they have limited options, that they often will turn to things like the military in order to feel like they can get an education and such. But yeah, of like, I know there are many native people that are can view that as being a traitor, of like working for the colonizer. But again, like what Bell Hooks says is that marginalization is having the absence of choices, of limited choices. And so, like, this is what so many people are experiencing now, of like, even as I was just like complaining about like job opportunities and stuff, of like, there are people who are experiencing even more marginalization than what I am, especially the babies who are black and have have even more intersections of marginalization that they're experiencing, or babies with darker skin than I do. So just calling that out as well. I feel like they've really clamped down on any sort of media coverage. Yeah, exactly. They have been extremely harsh, especially with people filming them. So it's not an accident as well, of like how uh like I was talking about recently, of having more like shadow banning and stuff, of featuring law enforcement of any kind that is doing anything that is untoward, like showing up to places they are explicitly not invited to. That is like, okay, this is part of this ethnic cleansing project where we cannot separate this concept of police brutality, of people of color being targeted, particularly black people, and this larger colonization project of the United States of America, but how queer identity is indigenous, how this cannot be separated from the colonizer violently trying to erase queer identity. And that, like, this is why we have to be talking about our liberation as being connected, that we need collective liberation. And they realize how bad this looked. And so they've been doing things that are even more underhand, of like pretending to be like a like delivery people sometimes, of like not overtly wearing their ICE stuff because they realize that people are following them and filming them, and that they're trying to just get people, especially recently in the morning when like most people are heading to work, because then people don't feel like they have as much time to be like following people and stuff. So like they've been strategic with how they're going about things, and it's really nefarious. The Trump administration described it as the largest immigration operation ever, saying it was intended to remove criminal illegal aliens and improve public safety. Yeah, whatever the fuck that means. This dehumanizing language of calling people aliens is just so disgusting. But also, like, what are we defining as criminal? Who are we defining as criminal? Because people are not criminal. There are things that can be done that go against certain laws. But what happens when, like, the criminality of it all, like, this is not even a factor? Because it's like, one, they don't actually care about documentation status. It's just all racial profiling. Even when people have the supposed documentation that they are wanting people to have, it doesn't matter. People are still detained for days and days, months, even some. Now we're heading on years. And how they just want people to be caught up in the process, the legal system. They're deported and just to be out of the country. And this has nothing to do with any sort of legality, supposed legality, especially when we consider, like, what about laws that are inherently anti-human? What about this legal system, this nation state that is illegally stolen on stolen land, illegally formed without the consent of the people who are living here? That it's like, if we're wanting to talk about criminality, why aren't we talking about the criminal undertakings of the people who are enforcing all of this bullshit? It's because it's about racism. It's about white supremacy. It's about this continued colonization, because that is what it is. These people are in hysterics over declining white birth rates, whatever that means, a hallmark of fascism when people are saying all of this bullshit, fear mongering about immigrants, that it's like, okay, you're an immigrant. You're an immigrant. Your family doesn't come here. You don't have native ancestry. You're an immigrant. For calling anyone aliens, the pasty fucks carrying unknown diseases. Yep, exactly. Hello.
Good morning. This is 9:50 a.m., the progressive voice of Minnesota. And this is Chase Iron Eyes with Native American Patriot Talk. This is season number 1. I've been essentially living in the greater Minneapolis-St. Paul area ever since about 3 days after Renee Nicole Good was taken from us, was taken from the good people of Minneapolis. They shot her 3 times, point blank. She got killed.
They just shot at somebody. You're criminals.
I know people were shocked that this was happening, and like, it should shock our consciences, but it's not shocking to anyone who has dealt with police brutality with any sort of marginalization, especially for people who were, I think some white straight leftists that were like still shocked by this somehow, and they were like, what, they just like shot a white lady? It's like, well, she is queer, so this tracks with police brutality with queer people, but this also goes to show this is what they are doing in broad daylight. What do they feel like they can do behind these closed doors in these concentration camps? That it's like, this is evil what they're doing in trying to erase human lives and strip people of their human dignity. This is why we have to be calling things as they are, like concentration camps. But like, they did that to Renee Nicole Good, a white, blonde, blue-eyed woman who is queer. That was one of the reasons why she was shot the way she did, or the way she was. But like, what are they doing to people with more melanin in their skin? What are they doing to people who do not have this supposed legal documentation, because whatever that fucking means, that it's like, this is why we cannot be underestimating their cruelty. We underestimate their cruelty at our own demise. And so, like, it doesn't mean that they're clever with it. It just means that they're using these systems that are already built to do what they were built to do and accelerate this ethnic cleansing project that they already have been doing in many areas, especially when it comes to the police state occupying Black neighborhoods and neighborhoods with low incomes and education levels. That it's like, this is all part of this colonial project.
1,000 and more immigration and customs enforcement agents are here doing violence against peaceful Americans in Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is a declaration of war against American constitutional order.
Rachel Corrie was killed in Israel in 2003, and motherfuckers are still surprised they'll kill anyone. Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're paying attention, if you open your eyes,
Hold on. Stay strong. They will
like
not
Alex
win.
Pretty, this is a white man.
They will not win. They will not win. Let's stand together.
This is why the people who are engaging in like protests and such in more of like an optics manner without wanting to wear masks, because they're like, yeah, the fascists wear masks, we shouldn't wear masks. It's like, you're doing this at your peril. They are creating a database of people who are protesting, of people who are resisting. And so like, you need to be protecting yourselves. We need to be protecting ourselves. And to the people who are saying like, oh, you shouldn't bring this to a protest, you shouldn't bring this. It's like, have you been brutalized by police without doing anything, just minding your own fucking business? I think people need to be able to defend themselves. Rodney King, yeah. It's like, this is a pattern, a historical pattern that happened since Christopher fucking Columbus got here and was calling people Indians when he was not in India, which we are still dealing with that dilemma to this day, as I've described in the past, of like using the language of colonizers. Like, we will always be failing to like accurately describe ourselves. So like, which is why I like to use the term like Desi, or why Native people like to say Native or First Nations. There are some people who are reclaiming the term Indian, but also like among Native people, but it's an exonym of coming from a different place inherently. Like, it's used to demean people in many ways. And why, like, many people who are Native want to be called by their nation, the nation that they're actually from, their tribe. Stuart Little. Oh, Stuart Little is my son. Thank you for subscribing. You've been subscribed for 10 months? Wow. That is wild. Oh, wait. Or you did subscribe for an additional 10 months? Maybe I'm not reading this right. They've subscribed for 10 months. Okay, I think that's what it's saying. I'm like, have I been streaming that long? Thank you. You're the best.
Brothers and sisters, we're here until ICE is out of Minneapolis.
I came on the ground because we began to hear in the Native American community that ICE was targeting and illegally profiling
You sure
Native
have.
Americans.
Wow, that is wild. I'm going to get something to clean
It's
this
wild.
up.
What I'm seeing is traumatic.
Because
I saw a
I'm
native
messy.
woman, and this native woman is terrified that masked, armed thugs are surrounding her vehicle and they're pressing her nephew, who's 20 years old.
Open up the door. Get out. Get out.
Okay, just listen, no.
You got ID?
Yes, he has an ID. Get your ID.
Hey.
Okay, we're citizens.
Okay, then show your ID.
Get your ID. We're native. What are you doing?
Hey.
Stop, just get ID. Police, can you help us? Let him stand your face. Why'd you hit him? No! Stop! What are you doing? No! Why? My nephew! Okay.
Move out there.
Stop! Ow! Okay, back out! Ow! Back out! No!
The Native American woman is getting assaulted. That could be my wife or my mom.
Why couldn't you help us?
I want to make sure that he's got, solid criminal representation, but I also want to make sure that ICE is held 100% accountable for the trauma and for the terror that they've inflicted on Native Americans.
He had 2 knots on his head. His wrists were cut up.
Holy crap.
He said they were
cuffs?
Yeah, he said that he told them they were too tight and they were like driving crazy for like an hour with him in the car. And he said that they went to unloosen him and they made him tighter and they started laughing at him.
What did you notice from that point until today? Like, what are some of the things that you and your girls have gone through,
She was like shaking and begging me not to leave because she was scared for me to go outside and open the door. Yeah, they didn't go to...
Yeah, this is what cops do. This is what the pigs do. This is a common tactic by IDF soldiers as well. People who are engaged in settler colonialism, of cruelty being the point, of trying to humiliate people, of like using handcuffs themselves as a weapon. This is a pattern of behavior.
Mommy, for a month and a half.
Enrique was right. She can go outside.
But why does that mean? What does that mean? Why can't brown people go outside?
Because they gotta get stolen by ICE agents.
Do some of your friends talk about that too?
No, they know that there's ICE agents here.
Kids should not have to know
Okay,
this
my
shit.
10-year-old, she would tell me, Mom, don't let them
And
go to
yet
school because they
they
might not remember to say that they're
have
US
to
citizens, and they started practicing
in order
how to say US
to
citizen.
survive this world.
U.S. innocent.
It is. They were practicing. How do I say that? And they, before they would go outside, so they knew how to say it. And I'm like, oh, that is so sad. I'm like, okay, so you guys can stop practicing now. You don't have to keep doing that. Yeah, and I think it was her or the other one said, I don't want to be black anymore. I want to be white. I said, you're not black. Yes, I am. And I'm like, you're not black. I'm like, stop saying that.
I did because I am
Sorry.
black.
What do you mean you're black?
Because just my skin color.
Your skin color?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you've gone through and what you're going through, what you're healing from, I think you can sue ICE. You can sue for either negligent or intentional infliction of emotional distress.
I mean, it can't be separated, like all of the similar conditions that Native people have experienced that are so similar to what Black people in America also experience. Even though the enslavement of Native people was not institutionalized formally, that Native people were enslaved, it does not mean that it's the same as state-sanctioned chattel slavery. So, like, drawing those distinctions there, but, like, this is ethnic cleansing, and, like, a kid can see these similarities. The audacity of ICE in general, but to target indigenous people. Yeah, where it's like, this is why with like birthright citizenship and stuff, why they have been questioning it. Fascist colonizer tactics, which like that case was won, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to try and do what they have been doing of wanting to get rid of birthright citizenship, which directly affects Native people, Black people, that this was a concept that was instituted after the abolishment of slavery. So when Kit came in, didn't notice that he came in until he was starting to leave.
This is tyranny in America, on America's doorsteps. We've dealt with it. Native people have dealt with it for centuries. Again, this is Chase Ironez, and I'm going to sign off. Lila Wopila Tanka Chichapilo. The irony is not lost on me that why am I out here calling myself Native American patriot to save this country that genocided me, that genocided my people, that put my people through a Holocaust? It's because my grandmothers told my grandfathers to smoke the sacred chanupa, the sacred pipe, which is our sacred instrument, to smoke that with these Americans so that we could recognize American nationhood. We have these ceremonies to help give us guidance. We swore to defend each other. And so our destinies are tied together. Even though they've not been treating us with equity or with justice. We are America. We are this land, we are this soil, we are the waters, the rivers, and the sacred sites, the very sky that is here.
Reading about the gold rush. Yeah, exactly. Especially like in the time of the gold rush where there wasn't as much oversight, which like what does that even mean? But like people just doing whatever they want. And there's no accountability. Like there even is really accountability when like we have more of official like statehood or whatever that means of like a territory. It's like which is why like to his point of what he's saying of like not a whole lot changes, whether it is formalized, institutionalized, but like there at least was like not as much evidence of like tracking of what was going on, but like there still is, which is why it's like so important to be talking about this history, actual history, and why it's not an accident that the Trump administration, they are continuing with their rewriting of history by like continuing to delete reports when it comes to racial violence, gun violence, with the Smithsonian, and saying that it's the Smithsonian Museum has engaged in too much activism, which is like, oh, so like they haven't even been going far enough in addressing all history of what has happened here. And yet it still is not enough because to some degree, they understand that what colonizers have done is wrong and it looks bad or makes them feel guilty, but they do not want to sit with that and question it and be like, why is this something that we want to cover up? Why does this make me feel bad? Have you considered that? But rather, they want to just use these systems of power to continue to erase people and erase references of people.
I went back to see my wife and my daughter. South Dakota, that's where I grew up.
Good food.
Parallels between Gold Rush and Trump's plan for mining and drilling. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's extraction. Resource extraction. Kid's here. We'll see if he jumps up.
When it's nice out, this is like heaven out here, guys. You run, you hike, you stop, and all you can hear is your own breath.
There he is.
One breath with this right here. Grandfather's breath. But I can do it Monday, bro.
All right.
I will. I'll do it, bro. Things got a little hectic over there, and you saw, well, we can talk about that here.
Friends and relatives, today, the night of nights, I introduce myself as Chief Bear Cross. I'm here from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Today, I speak about how the ICE
To accompany extraction always comes genocide. Yep.
Native American. First thing I'm going to say is, you may want to look at yourself and remember whose land you're on. Do not let the federal government with this white prejudiced president chase us away. Stand peaceful, relatives. Our prayers and thoughts are with you.
What we need to do is we need to all band together to keep ICE out of our territory here. I heard ICE is already here in Rapid. One solitary figure like this, you're pretty weak, but you bring more fingers in, and like that, you make a fist. You become pretty strong and pretty formidable.
I love love that.
Where I live now is the
That
site of an armed
representation,
occupation that
collective
lasted
power
71 days.
is really powerful.
And my father was there. He was a part of that armed occupation.
The Oglala Lakota stood against the federal government for their mistreatment of our people. Decades later, I found myself on the front lines at Standing Rock. We put our lives on the line protesting an oil pipeline on our land. They stormed in with the National Guard. We were pepper sprayed, brutalized, arrested, and traumatized on our
Yep, continuing extraction.
own territory.
Same story.
We have never had a chance but to resist.
They don't intend to leave.
Okay, what do you plan on doing?
I plan to go tell them what their rights are, what they're going to be charged with.
Well, if you go back up there, you'll be the first one to be arrested.
That's the spirit of a warrior. We'll always fight for what's right.
And you have to go back?
I don't know, maybe Monday through Thursday. It says ICE is incredibly withdrawing. They say they are, but also on the ground, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep seeing stuff of people getting harassed or even observers getting arrested.
Yep, all of this false hope.
Really not trying to get arrested.
Foreign miners tax of 1850 sounds exactly like a Trump executive order. I'm gonna bring this up. I'm not familiar with the specifics, but I mean, I can probably guess.
Beto finds out he has a warrant for his arrest for
Foreign Miners Tax Act of 1850 was a discriminatory law passed in California that imposed a monthly fee of $20 on foreign miners, targeting Chinese and Latin American workers. Yep. We cannot also forget about people who are Chinese, how they were employed by the railroad as well, to help support all of the resource extraction that was going on, to build this railroad, to get all of these, like the Golden Spike or whatever, like have all of this be connected so that it could help capitalists extract more easily from the land. But Chinese people were essentially in slave-like conditions as well. While repealed briefly in 1851, it was reintroduced in 1852 with a lower fee of $4. This law financially burdened Chinese miners, forcing many to abandon their claims and seek work in other industries. It entrenched economic discrimination, drove the formation of Chinatowns as refuges, and set a precedent for future exclusionary policies like the Chinese Exclusion Act. Yep. Despite these hardships, Chinese immigrants displayed remarkable resilience, forming organizations to advocate for their rights and adapt to the hostile environment. The tax not only reflected the racism of the area, but also fueled the systemic marginalization of Chinese communities in the United States. Yep. And we saw how this was, Jesus Christ, all this racist depiction. Yeah, unbelievable history of the gold rush. Yeah. Maybe we should watch this, watch more about the gold rush on a stream. Yeah, the legacy of discrimination paving the way for exclusionary policies. Yeah, of like, this is why we have to be talking about this discrimination, oppression as a collective, of it being intertwined, because it cannot be separated. All of the tactics that are being used are so similar when it comes to various communities and populations.
assaulting an officer.
Thanks for bringing that up, Linton.
Cause to bind him over for trial, and just based on ICE agents' report, And Beto is here for his formal arraignment. Beto was minding his business. They turned his life upside down, and now it's a nightmare. Now he's facing 10 years in a federal prison.
They would take him.
I'm absolutely delighted and beside myself that your charges have been reclassified to misdemeanor. That's a tremendous weight off your shoulders, man. You went from 10 years to 6 months, but I don't think you're gonna get that at all. Just based on how that judge is talking, I can't even believe it. I can't believe it. They don't have what they need to convict Beto. I don't think they have it.
They rarely do. Ew.
Weight has been lifted. I felt that today. I was listening in and I heard that, and I was like, what? I heard it right from the judge's mouth.
I was so worried for him.
Victoria, we're gonna go bye-bye.
Framed pictures, I know. They also have these up in airports now. Like coming in, especially from out of the country. Like back when like Kristi Noem was still the head of the Department of Homeland Security, it was a Trump photo and Kristi Noem's photo. And of course, like, they're all narcissists, but like her especially being one, and that's something that people think Trump didn't like, is how much attention she wanted from the media. Like, they were constantly playing propaganda messages from her of like where she was starring in all of these things. That's like, it's so tacky to be fascist. It's embarrassing, and it just is like evil, but they don't care. They don't have any sort of principles, and they don't have any sort of moral compass, and so they resort to these violent tactics in order to feel good about themselves.
Wow. It's so good to see the family recovering. They're in a completely different mind and heart space than when I first met them. Man, they gotta pay. ICE has to pay. Legally, lawfully, politically, economically, everything. You can't do what ICE is doing and get away with it. This is hallowed ground right here.
What we're looking for in terms of the class action is really based on the different categories of plaintiffs. So the first
We used to live in Minneapolis. This is a few blocks from where we lived. It really is. Like, not to say there aren't similar situations of like happening where we're located now in Utah, but like it really is just so wild to see.
I met James Cook.
Of like places
James
that are
Cook grew
familiar.
up in Southside Minneapolis. He's a fighter. He's got great energy.
This is America.
And that's
This
the
is what
beginnings
it
of the
is.
class action lawsuit that we're about to file. Hey, Shantia. Yeah, we're like right around here.
Yeah, this is Trisha. This is James.
What's happening? How you doing? All right, hey, come on in. All right, actually, we can sit down right there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
ICE jacked him up.
Yeah,
Jacked
him up.
nephew up
And you?
first and Shanti.
Okay. When they jacked you up, what do they do to you?
He like punched my shoulder, and then I just was like bear hugging my nephew
And they detained you guys?
Oh, my nephew.
So again, I'm James. We are going to do some real litigation and sue ICE for plaintiffs situated such as yourself. We want the community to know, and also ICE to know, that we're always going to run interference whenever they try to do these types of things to people. You know, you'd be the second or third list of plaintiffs that we would file on behalf of.
I want to sue them because it's all wrong and they should be held accountable. But it's like it is scary too.
Yeah, you got to think about it, because we're dealing with a crazy man.
Yeah.
I have done nothing at all! I'm a United States citizen! You're gonna kill me!
I was shot in the back with projectiles. Masked men tackled me to the ground, had slurs and insults spat at me, acid sprayed on my face, picked up and thrown into the back of a pickup truck to be driven away from witnesses where I believed my life would end. It is my hope, alongside with the brave people of this community, that these lawsuits don't only bring about much needed consequences, but also show that justice can be found here.
Where is he right now?
He's being arrested by ICE.
Okay, we're gonna take care. We're gonna take care.
I'm hearing the sounds of a man's voice crying out, and when I turn around to see what was happening, all I can see is a group of masked agents violently assaulting my husband. It is incredibly difficult to explain the kind of fear that you feel as you realize that these people, who hours before had just shot and killed an innocent man in the street, might now do the same to the love of your life in front of your eyes.
What they did is they threw me on the ground, they shoved my face in the pavement, and they put a knee on the back of my neck, which is a felony in the state of Minnesota. They never charged me with a crime, but they stole away my rights. So we're going to continue to stand up for these people, immigrant and citizen alike, because we believe in the Constitution, because we believe in humanity. Stand up now, Americans, before it's too late, because every day it gets worse. Every day Donald Trump steals our rights away. All power to the people.
All right, thanks everybody for showing up today. My name is James Cook. I just want to say a few words. Originally, I didn't even want to get involved, and then I saw somebody get ripped from their son, and the son was like beside themselves, and so was the dad. And so that's how I got involved. Without further ado, Chase.
To all those who are here with us and who stand with us, those who have been targeted, we're here to hold to account anybody who's done wrong. What they've done is illegal, and they need to be held accountable. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Even just seeing like how diverse the targeting is, like the discrimination, they don't care who it is, as long as which is why we have to be talking about it as colonizer shit, because they see people with melanin in their skin, they see people who are considered political enemies, that they're categorized as race traitors essentially, and why it takes our collective unity in order to fight all of this bullshit.
We wanted to make a quick announcement that we're pro bono attorneys that are teaming up to represent anybody who's been targeted by ICE, anybody who's been profiled by ICE. Please call this number. They may come for us. They may try to come for you, a peaceful American citizen. And we have to stand together. Tyranny is not on its way. Tyranny is at our front door. Give me liberty or give me death. Give me liberty or give me death.
It takes something brave about a person to come forward and say, you know what, I'm going to fight fascism today.
And that's what the United States Constitution is about. It's about being able to defend yourselves from tyranny.
Ideally. That's what it would be. The Trump administration said that more than 4,000 criminal illegal aliens were arrested during Operation Metro Surge, and we can't even trust whatever they're saying, because they make shit up, where they inflate the numbers, and then they also are not reporting on things, and so like the number of people, especially who have died in custody, are way higher than have been reported. Exactly. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. I'm glad that Al Jazeera featured that. It also is just one avenue for confronting what is happening. Because we do see how, like, the legal system is not always just. And how when people take justice into their own hands, often there can be more of an equitable, actually just result, whatever that may mean. Okay, so to keep this in perspective, of being on occupied, stolen land, let's continue talking about the history of Turtle Island. This is a continuation of the series by White Buffalo Circles. Joel, the educator, is doing an amazing job and does a lot of education just in the nation at large, in Canada where he's located, but in other places as well. And as we were talking about, like, these arbitrary borders that are put up by nation states to impose their own kinds of domination and oppression, that our collective interest in seeing this landmass as Turtle Island, I think, is really helpful to be like, yes, these borders have not always existed. They were put up by colonizers. This is a colonizer tactic. This video contains subject matter that may evoke an emotional response. It is a good idea to have an elder, knowledge carrier, or some type of emotional support present for proper debrief or sharing circle upon completion of these videos. If you need to talk with someone, this is the number for the National Indian Residential School Crisis Line. I'm going to go back just to pause on that. 1-866-925-4419.
Anin, bonjour. Joel Egawisa Ndijnikas. Welcome back to this multi-part series of the history of Turtle Island. I believe we're going to call this part 2. Hope you're enjoying the lesson so far. And miigwech for joining me, and you guys take care out there. One of the first things that the Europeans brought to this land, and initially it was unintentional, was diseases. Smallpox being one of the most commonly known diseases that came from Europe to these lands. Now, a European immune system had built strong immunities to smallpox. Someone from Europe would get the spots, they would get sick, maybe the fever, just kind of like chickenpox is today, but they would fight that off and they would survive. For 15,000 years, First Nations people had zero immunities to these diseases that came across the ocean, and they were devastating. I've heard numbers in the first 200 years, up to 90% of the indigenous population was decimated from disease. 90%. So you have 100 million people in 1492, and then by 1700 to round it up, now you're down to 10 million people. 90% of the population was wiped out in the first 200 years just from contact. And the majority of those nations that were wiped out were here, again, on the eastern seaboard.
Mind-boggling.
That was first contact with Europeans. These nations, many of these nations are gone from the planet maybe forever. It's hard to tell exactly how many nations have disappeared. Again, the number I have is 500 nations, but that number is most likely higher. And today it's my understanding that there's still about 173 different dialects of First Nations languages spoken here in Turtle Island. So that doesn't exactly translate to the nations, but it does translate to me to cultures that survive. Because for our people, our language really connects to our culture. The way we speak connects to the earth, connects to our spirit, and relates directly to our culture. So today there's about 173 dialects remaining. 173 languages.
Of the over 500 original and unique First Nation languages, there are only 173 remaining today.
Left. And again, that number could be higher. But as you can see, this is a really big difference between these numbers. That's 327 languages, 327 nations, cultures that are gone from the face of the earth forever. And we're talking about an entire nation, an entire culture and group of people that's gone from this planet forever. In many cases, what you're talking about is genocide. Now, the first thing I said was, in many instances, these diseases were brought here unintentionally. But once they were here, it became kind of a tool, kind of a biological weapon for the settlers that were after the resources of these lands. And that's what we kind of need to get to next, I think, is the way that we viewed these lands. First Nations culture, again, if you watch my other videos, we connect to our planet, to Mother Earth in everything. Our language, the way that we live, everything that we do in our culture has to do.
North Sentinel Island, the one that Orientalist YouTubers love to talk about, was the victim of this. A colonial researcher kidnapped 8 of them, gave them diseases that killed 2 of them, and then sent their other 6 victims back to the island to spread the disease. And now there's so many dumbasses online saying, I wonder why they're scared of outsiders. Yeah, hello. Of like, what? Like, imagine not being centered for one instance and actually having to reconcile with the past. That's like, yeah. People don't know what to do with their guilt a lot of the time, and it's like, how about learn? How about educate yourselves and then like use that for fuel for action? Like, get involved with resistance efforts. It really is wild what people, like the lengths people will go to make themselves feel better instead of actually doing the right thing.
Keeping the earth beautiful and pristine, not for us, but for 7 generations of children to come. We do not own this planet. We are borrowing this planet from our children. And that was the mentality of all of these First Nations. For 15,000 years we lived here. And in all of those thousands of years, we barely left a footprint on this beautiful planet. And it wasn't easy. It was more difficult to live the way that we did. Guaranteed, this luxury that we live in today is nice, but it hurts our planet. You can't argue that. And everything that we did was to make sure that we did not leave a big footprint so that our children had just the beautifulest place to live. And not just our children, we're talking about those 7 generations, our great, 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 great grandchildren. We wanted to make sure that they had a beautiful home to live in. And that's the way that we lived our lives every day, was to maintain the beauty of this land forever. And when the Europeans arrived, they brought with them many things. They brought with them their language. They brought with them their way of thinking. They brought with them their economy and their need for more. When they saw the beautiful untouched forests of North America, they didn't see habitat and a part of creation for all of those beautiful creatures. They saw money, right? They said, man, we're gonna chop down those trees and we're gonna make billions. And
Mexico City sinking into the ground is a testament to how utterly clueless the colonizers were. Yeah, exactly. Of like, it's not about sustainability. It's never been about like doing things in a way that's like would be considered ethical or even practical. It's all about control and domination, these power imbalances. That's like, when you are just focused on power, it's like you can be as dumb as you want. Like, if you have access to power, it doesn't mean that like you won't lose power at some point, but like, yeah, which is why when there are people who are trying to justify or who will like deny even global warming and stuff, of like, oh, the earth just like goes through these cycles, or like, why would businesses or like billionaires do this when like they need to keep making money? It's like, that's never been that's never been their concern. Like, sustainability actually implies that like they're trying to be considerate over like having efforts that can last a long time, that takes a measure of restraint. And it's never been about that. It's always about extraction, like this, what he was talking about, this endless greed that has to be according to them, satiated at whatever cost. It is about trying to extract as much as possible in as short of a time as possible. The Aztecs had a floating city on a huge lake. The colonizers came in and drained it after their genocide. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, there is so much that is lost because of colonization, and not only like the invisibilization in history, but culture that is lost of artifacts, like evidence, not to mention human lives of these colonizers being bent on these genocidal projects. That's like, this is so devastating. And then realizing after, like, oh, here are all of these practices that would have like saved this kind of habitat or this kind of habitat. And it's like, have we ever considered that indigenous people all over the world understand how to live with the environment, to live with the land, and not impose domination on the land? It's like, this is why we have to be talking about colonization and capitalism as being the same thing.
Lands to this very day. When they saw all the animals, when Europeans first arrived here, there was 400 million beavers, is the number that I've researched. 400 million beavers. That's crazy. Imagine how the land would shape and move with their dams and the way they influence the environment. But they didn't see God's creature and part of creation. They saw fur. They saw money, right? Ooh, man, we're gonna harvest these furs. We're gonna send them back to Europe. We're gonna make billions. And they did, right? The fur trade was what drove the Canadian economy for 300 years before we overhunted our beavers. Today, it's my understanding there's about 4 million beavers left in North America of the 400 million when Europeans arrived.
That's 396 million beaver pelts harvested during the fur trade times. Yeah, in such a short amount of time. It's about endless greed. It's not about sustainability. It never has been. It's also not an accident that like the government is looking to something I saw recently, and I don't remember like where this is happening. I'll look this up. Of wild horses, they're trying to relocate elsewhere. Like some of the last populations of wild horses in the US. Here we go. 450 wild horses face a roundup in eastern Sierra as feds proceed with contested plan. Federal officials will begin rounding up wild horses in the eastern Sierra on July 8th, citing trampled wetlands and highway hazards with the animals to be offered for adoption. The whole point is that they should not be adopted, is that they should be wild, because like these people who claim to be patriots of like, oh, we love eagles and like the mountains and shit, while they're killing the habitats for eagles. Like eagles are endangered, bald eagles specifically. That it's like, it's not an accident that's happening with capitalism. Like people who want to have this imagery of what like the United States of America means in their mind without having to grapple with the forces that are destroying these like beautiful lands and the creatures living here. The helicopter-assisted operation is praised by some environmentalists but condemned by others, including local tribes and animal advocates. I would think maybe listen to the local tribes. This is why as well, like how we were talking about earlier, you mentioned, Linton, of like resource extraction always accompanies genocide, but how indigenous people have always been on the front lines of protecting the land because they understand the interconnected nature of life and sacredness of life, and also how there is always a human cost as well. when there are many people who don't care about other forms of life until it finally affects humans, and then even then they don't care, even if it's like their own family or neighbors, even if it's themselves, sometimes they don't care, as long as they get to like live in this delusion of feeling like they have more than some other people. At the heart of the clash is how to manage wild horse populations that can reproduce at a rapid clip. There are not even that many, though. There are not even that many left. Like, how about maybe just let them do what they do? How about leave them be? Horses shouldn't have been on data center. Sarcasm. I know, exactly. Yeah, they're like, oh, there are too many. It's like in Utah, there is this law to essentially say, I should look this up as well, of mountain lions. There is year-round hunting where you can kill as many cougars, kill as many mountain lions as possible. Have we ever considered that maybe we built things where mountain lions exist? Generally runs from November 7th to... That's not true. No quotas, no limits. Just show up and enjoy the hunt. Yep, this is what I was looking for. Utah's new study aims to kill as many cougars as possible. The mascot of Brigham Young University, where I went to school, unfortunately, people only care about these beautiful creatures in name. Andy Rice is perhaps the last person you'd expect to care about mountain lions. A sheep herder near Boulder, Utah, he said that over the past decade, mountain lions, also called cougars, have killed about 100 of his sheep, costing him tens of thousands of dollars. But Rice is deeply upset about the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources. Yeah, because maybe he understands that this is like, oh, this type of like creating of resources, of ranching, of having livestock, that this will draw in predators. Hello? That this is like part of the circle of life. Starting late last year, the state has been paying hunters and trappers to kill as many mountain lions as possible in 6 of the state's 30 hunting units as part of the state-led study of how predator removal affects mule deer and bighorn sheep populations. This aggressive approach, which is scheduled to continue year-round through 2029, is funded in part by sportsmen's groups. Yeah, hello. This is a continued of the colonizer, patriarchal idea of what it means to be manly and hunting this big game that's like, how about don't use a gun? Maybe then it would be even a little bit impressive if you were able to take down a mountain lion. But like there's just no competition. Of like you have all of these like unfair advantages, but people want to be like, oh, this means that I'm a man. That's like so wild to me. My concern is that the government that I pay into and the conservation organizations that I've trusted my whole life as a hunter in Utah are willfully creating programs that are destructive to our communities. Hunters and trappers began killing mountain lions in some units last October, according to the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources spokesperson Faith Jolly, and as of March 19th, they had killed 45. Meanwhile, DWR biologists began capturing and collaring mule deer for monitoring last December. And as people are building out with like this population growth of humans, have we ever considered that maybe there are a lot of humans that are building into these habitats? That maybe that is the issue? Excuse me. Like here in the UK, we're set to put our wildlife onto our banknotes, yet we keep accelerating policy that will see their extinction. Yeah, exactly. That's like, oh, they want us to feel guilty that we aren't doing enough to protect the planet, to save animals, when in reality, like, there are all of these government policies, like quite literally, that are causing this devastation of life all around. Capitalism, colonization holds no life to be sacred except for the capitalist, and even then they eat their own. So it's like nothing is sacred.
And I'd like to preface a little bit too. When I say the word European, I really want to, I'm referring to those settlers that came from across the ocean. It was mostly British, French. Early on, it was Dutch and Spanish. So when I say European, I'll try to be more specific. It's hard for me to label all of the nations that came here and the governments that continue to control this land today. But just know that's kind of who I'm talking about when I say the word Europeans, because I don't want to label all 5 of the British and French and Spanish governments that came across. So just so you know that. So it was a very different way of thinking. Again, when they came here, they saw money and they saw ways to make money. When we looked at this land, we just saw Mother Earth, this beautiful planet that takes care of us, gives us everything that we need. And again, our main priority was those 7 generations of children to make sure she was here and healthy and strong for them, not for us, for them. So now, more and more boats are coming, and more boats are coming. Every day boats are arriving on the shores of the new world. And more disease is affecting the East Coast.
Yeah, quotes,
now,
new
if
world.
There was a nation
Because it's been existing.
Prime farmland, let's say, and they weren't cooperating, they're being difficult, they don't want to leave. It was very simple for the European settlers to get rid of that nation. All they had to do was go to the smallpox ward in the hospital, round up some blankets off of those patients. And again, well, my people didn't purchase things, we bartered, we traded for things. Again, I talked about those vast trading networks all across Turtle Island. So the settlers would take those blankets to that nation, offer a nice trade for whatever it was that they wanted, and all they had to do was sit back and wait for a couple months, and that entire nation, that entire village, that whole community would be gone. Didn't matter, babies, elders, the strongest warriors. When smallpox ravaged a village, it decimated the entire nation, the entire group of people. And we were talking about intentionally infecting an entire group of people who died from smallpox. You were talking about genocide. That is intentionally murdering an entire culture for the resources of the land in which they inhabit. And I'd like to say that happened once in North America. There's multiple research that I've done in multiple sites all up and down the eastern seaboard where that occurred. So we know that to be true in many instances. It wasn't always accidental, the disease and the genocide.
Hello, Bunso, welcome.
Biological weapons that was
I'm doing
used
all right.
here in North America and then later on in South America
You
as
know,
well.
hanging in there. Still talking about a decolonized history of Turtle Island, of the Americas. Because decolonization is never something that's like officially achieved. It should be a continued thing. How are you doing?
So the disease decimated our population. By 1700, we're down to 10 million. We're getting weaker. We're still powerful. 10 million versus, again, the hundreds of thousands maybe that have come off the boat in those first 200 years. And at this point, again, there's still no real lines on the map. There's nations all across these lands. So the power begins to shift during this time frame. And it's these nations here in the east that were really wiped out the most, because all up and down this seaboard were hundreds and hundreds of different nations living here.
You have a book on Marxist economics? That's cool. I love that.
Friendships were created during the fur trade wars, but remember, there was British, there was French, there was Spanish. So what also started to happen during this time, when
the colonizers are fighting
to us, and greed and things and more kind of mentality, we began to adopt that mentality. We began to kind of hunt.
I don't know anything about economics.
You know, prior to contact, we took just what we needed.
I trust Marxism as much as I do capitalism, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, you'll have to return and report. That's a Mormon joke. It's a phrase that's said in the temple that you're not supposed to say outside of it. So I like to say it outside of it. Yeah, I mean, I think capitalism is inherently cannibalistic, suicidal in many ways, but yeah, you'll have to let us know. Crazy. Hello, Fendi. Welcome. And first time chatter. Good to have you. Crazy how the native upkept the Americas for thousands of years and settlers destroyed it in just 250. Yeah, exactly. We've been talking about all of these examples of wildlife as well that have been endangered, how that continues, and how like we need to be talking about all of these like fascist policies, like they haven't just come out of nowhere. It's a continuation of colonization. And that when we look at it that way, it makes a whole lot of things make sense. I think especially when it comes to liberals in general, but like some white leftists only focusing more on like the Trump administration instead of like the larger project of settler colonialism and the violence that it uses to impose this kind of non-consensual domination. That's like, this is a pattern of behavior. Fascist tactics are colonizer tactics. We don't need to give fascists that much credit. You know, it's not, it doesn't take intelligence to be cruel. It just is part of this larger history of cruelty and violence. But welcome, glad to have you. How are you doing today?
We used every bit of that animal to honor the life that was just taken, and that was it until we needed more. But now with the coming of the European settlers and the introduction of the fur trade and money, we began to overhunt the beaver, we began to overhunt other things for fur. We began to think and learn like the settlers that were coming to these shores. We began to fight each other over the resources of these lands and see those resources not as...
Those companies pitted First Nations against each other in order to control resources. Yeah, so this is why it's good to be talking about capitalism in general, that it is part of colonization. Colonization came before, but how with many different colonial projects, it starts with companies in order to have a foothold and missionary work to impose domination over people's minds and to force people to assimilate to the colonizers' sensibility with all of these boarding schools, residential schools, that like this is not an isolated thing to the Americas. It's anywhere there is a colonial project, this is what happens, where all of these forces of politics, of religion, of business, so-called business, all of these things are used for nefarious ends of having resources extracted, imposing domination, and if they can't do so, then if they can't force assimilation, then they erase people and erase history. I made my dad watch a documentary about the Cuba flotilla yesterday. His first response was fuck Trump. I had to tell him the blockade is older than he is. The liberal blind spot is wide. Yeah, especially when, like, I know here in the UK, but like in the US, like I'm constantly being surprised by history. And I am interested in learning that it's like, imagine the people living in places where education has consistently been defunded, largely the Confederacy, the Confederate states, and they have been taught to have no curiosity about the world, where it's like, we really are so deeply propagandized and uneducated, which is why like learning about actual history is a way we can help decolonize our minds and hopefully lead to decolonizing action of engaging in organizing, advocating for land back principles, actually learning about how, like, what's happening with the environment and with the creatures living there, like how we just have been talking about, of like, this is a form of domination that always leads to human harm. So even if you don't care about the land or about animals, well, guess what? Humans are animals, even though they would like us, all of these people, to believe that's like, oh, we're at the top of the food chain. Okay, how about we get rid of your gun? How about you try fighting a mountain lion on your own? Then you'll see who's at the top of the food chain and why you need all of these like unfair advantages, because you actually do not have the you do not have the skills to be there naturally. The residential schools are so horrific. Yeah. There was a fire at one in Kenya not long ago. They locked the dorms. Yeah, it's so disgusting. It's deplorable. And it is a pattern. This has existed for as long as there have been groups of human beings who want to impose non-consensual domination over another group. And why we need to keep talking about this, of like, these tactics are not new. They just get a facelift a lot of the time. And even then, they're not even that different with how they look or how they're like executing these things. It just is, it doesn't take smarts to be fascist. It doesn't take smarts to be cruel. It just takes not having a sense of empathy and actually using these systems that already exist to enact more cruelty. Which is why we'll be talking about this in Othello. My friend in Kenya grew up in them. Yeah. I hope your friend is doing okay now. I mean, that doesn't mean that like people aren't forced to live with these experiences after the fact. Okay, I think we'll stop there and then continue this tomorrow. I did want to do a little bit of reading. We won't be able to finish scene 3 in Act 3 of Othello, but I did want to get started on it a bit. But, you know, it can be very disheartening existing in the world and be like, wow, people are really cruel. And like, where is there any goodness that's left? And it's like, well, this is why it's also good for us to be like talking about these things and like building community, humanizing ourselves outside of these systems. Like how Joel in that video was even talking about like bartering, of like with capitalism making things more unaffordable, and not like they were ever affordable really, but especially for certain groups of people, that like we have to build systems that exist outside of these oppressive systems in order to create the world that we want to see. Because we can often and are be like, we can be disempowered and are disempowered in many ways, but the way they try to, like the ruling class, the people who are trying to dictate what reality is like, they also have a vested interest in limiting our imaginations, in limiting the kind of world that we can think up. And so this is why they are invested in so many media and entertainment outlets, because they don't want us to see that certain things are possible, even if it is in an imaginary realm. Because if we are thinking that it exists, or thinking about what could exist, in a way, it does exist somewhere, even if it's just in our minds. So, okay, shall we get into scene 3 in the previous two scenes, Cassio is trying to gain back favor from Othello because he was kicked out of his position because Iago incited this incident where it made Cassio look bad. He got him very drunk and then got him angry and made it look like he was just irresponsible and doing this out of nowhere. And this is because Iago wants his position, but even more so, it's probably because Iago has a lot of internalized queerphobia. He seems to think a lot about Othello and Cassio's sexual prowess. That's like, how about you just don't get up to that bullshit? And how about you just say, like, hi, I think you're hot. Can we fuck? I mean, I don't know. But clearly, this is not something Iago is interested in doing. How we see people who internalize these structures, this type of oppression and discrimination, that they are some of the worst perpetrators in continuing these systems because they feel like they have to overcompensate in order to make it so that they are not noticed for their own queerness or whatever the type of marginalization that they experience or would be experiencing if they didn't think of themselves as the in-group. Okay, so Cassio was outside of Desdemona and Othello's bedroom, which was also kind of weird. And he brought these musicians along and he was like, oh, play a song. This will be great. He'll like this. And people are like, that's kind of weird. Don't do that. Like a clown, meaning like a jester, like the court jester was like, this is weird. So I'm glad someone is calling him out. But Emilia, Iago's wife, she is a lady in waiting to Desdemona, and she is saying like, oh, I've heard them talking, and Desdemona is saying that like you're a great guy, and she's standing up for you, for Othello, and even Othello is saying he had to do what he had to do in order to get rid of you, but also like he still cares about you. So that's where we left off. Enter Desdemona, Cassio, and Emilia. Desdemona. Be thou assured, good Cassio, I will do all my abilities in thy behalf. Emilia. Good madam, do. I warrant it grieves my husband, as if the cause were his. Okay. So Emilia seemed to have some sense of clarity in understanding who her husband is in some of the previous scenes by like calling him out, but now all of a sudden she's on Iago's side. I will reiterate, are none of these people Scorpios? Are none of these people, like, do they none of them have, like, any sense of discernment of character? Because Iago is such a snake. Like, no one is talking about that, which is also why this is not very realistic. It's fiction. Desdemona. Oh, that's an honest fellow. Do not doubt, Cassio, but I will have my lord and you again, as friendly as you were. Cassio. Bounteous, madam. Whatever shall become of Michael Cassio, he's never anything but your true servant. Desdemona. I know it. I thank you. You do love my lord. You have known him long, and you will be well assured he shall in strangeness stand no farther off than in a politic distance. Footnote. He will distance himself from you only as much as good diplomacy requires. Because he doesn't want to immediately bring him back in because he caused a scene and it wouldn't look good for Othello politically. Cassio. Aye, but, lady, that policy may either last so long or feed upon such nice and waitrish diet, or breed itself out of circumstance. I don't know what, is it waterish? That's probably what it is. Waterish diet. Footnote. Or persist based on such unimportant and poor justifications, or continue by chance. Continuing with Cassio. That I being absent and my place supplied, meaning filled, my general will forget my love and service. Desdemona. Do not doubt that. Before Emilia here, I give thee warrant of thy place. Assure thee, if I do vow a friendship, I'll perform it to the last article. My lord shall never rest. I'll watch him tame and talk him out of patience. I'll finish the sentence. His bed shall seem a school, his board a shrift, meaning confessional. We have another footnote. I'll keep him awake until he obeys me, and talk to him beyond his endurance. Keep him awake until he obeys me. That's like some Dom shit. I mean, I don't know if Othello's consenting to that, so that's an issue. I'll intermingle everything he does with Cassio's suit. Therefore, be merry, Cassio, for thy solicitor shall rather die than give thy cause away. Solicitor meaning like a lawyer or an advocate, which she is saying she is for him, for his cause. Enter Othello and Iago. Emilia, Madam, here comes my lord. Cassio, Madam, I'll take my leave. Desdemona, why, stay and hear me speak. Cassio, Madam, not now. I am very ill at ease, unfit for mine own purposes. Desdemona, well, do your discretion. Exit Cassio. Iago, I like not that. Othello, what dost thou Whoops, I forgot my Othello voice. Alarm play. Yeah, exactly. Hello, Oxpecker. How are you doing? Good to see you. Okay, what was my Othello voice? What dost thou say? Just general low register. Iago, nothing, my lord, or if I know not what. Othello, was not that Cassio parted from my wife? Cassio, my lord? No, sure, I cannot think it. That he would steal away so guilty-like, seeing your coming. So he's trying to sow these seeds of doubt in his trust in Desdemona and also their relationship, which is not Cassio and Desdemona's relationship, which is not untoward. They aren't having an affair, but this is what Iago is wanting Othello to think. Othello, I do believe 'twas he. Desdemona, how now, my lord? I have been talking with a suitor here, a man that languishes in your displeasure. Othello, who is it, you mean? Desdemona, why, your lieutenant, Cassio, my good lord. If I have any grace or power to move you, his present reconciliation take, meaning accept him now. For if he be not one that truly loves you, that errs in ignorance and not in cunning, I have no judgment in an honest face. I prithee call him back. Okay, none of these people are good at judging honest faces, clearly, because Iago is such a fucking liar that they're all like, he's honest, Iago. That's like, you are all dumb. Othello, went he hence now? Desdemona, yes, faith, so humbled that he hath left part of his grief with me to suffer with him. Good love, call him back. Othello, not now, sweet Desdemona, some other time. So this is again a rhetorical trick, I guess maybe it's not a trick, tactic that Shakespeare is using so that he's not saying Desdemona, so that the meter and iambs line up. Because iambic pentameter. Desdemona, but shall it be shortly? Othello, the sooner, sweet, for you. Desdemona, shall it be tonight at supper? No, not tonight. Tomorrow dinner, then, meaning midday meal. Othello, I shall not dine at home. I meet the captains at the citadel. So this is meaning like, oh, he's actually doing his job. Wow. Good for him. Desdemona, why then tomorrow night or Tuesday morn, on Tuesday noon or night, on Wednesday morn, I prithee name the time, but let it not exceed 3 days. In faith, he's penitent, and yet his trespass in our common reason, save that, they say, the wars must make example out of her best, is not almost a fault to incur a private check. Footnote, is barely worth even private criticism. When shall he come? Tell me, Othello, I wonder in my soul what you would ask me that I should deny, or stand so mammering on, meaning hesitating on. What, Michael Cassio, that came a-wooing with you, and so many a time, when I have spoke of you dispraisingly, hath ta'en your part. So she's like, Othello... So when Othello came to woo Desdemona, Cassio would come with him, and that sometimes when Desdemona would be talking about Othello in like not a nice way, Cassio would come to his defense. It's like, why are you admitting that? That you're like, yeah, I was talking shit about you to your friend, and he defended you. When I have spoken of you dispraisingly, hath ta'en your part, to have so much to do to bring him in? By'r lady, I could do much, meaning by'r lady, that's like saying like by the lady, like Mother Mary, so it's like a little curse. Footnote, do much to make you regret your reluctance? Othello, prithee no more. Let him come when he will. I will deny thee nothing. Desdemona, why, this is not a boon. 'Tis I should entreat you wear your gloves, or feed on nourishing dishes, or keep you warm, or sue to you to do a peculiar profit, meaning particular profit, to your own person. Nay, when I have a suit, wherein I mean to touch your love indeed, it shall be full of poise, and difficult weight, and fearful to be granted. She was like, that's not saying much. Come on, give me what I want. Othello, I will deny thee nothing, whereon I do beseech thee, grant me this, to leave me but a little to myself. Desdemona, shall I deny you? No. Farewell, my lord. She's like, see, I'm not denying you. Bye. Othello, farewell, my Desdemona. I'll come to thee straight, meaning immediately. Why do they even have that as like a footnote? I feel like that's clear. Anyway. Desdemona, Emilia, come. To Othello, be as your fancies teach you, as your whims lead you. Whate'er you be, I am obedient. Exeunt Desdemona and Emilia. Othello, excellent wretch. He's calling his wife a wretch. That's saying affectionately, like, oh, you silly whore. I mean, he didn't call her a whore, but, you know. Perdition catch my soul, but I do love thee, and when I love thee not, chaoses come again. Iago, my noble lord. Othello, what dost thou say, Iago? Like, oh, you're here? I forgot about you. Did Michael Cassio, when you wooed my lady, know of your love? He did, from first to last. Why dost thou ask? But for a satisfaction of my thought, no further harm. Yeah, right. Othello, why of what thought, Iago? No, why of thy thought, Iago? I did not think he had been acquainted with her. Oh, yes, and went between us very oft. Iago, indeed. Indeed? Aye, indeed. Discernest thou aught in that? Is he not honest? Iago, honest, my lord? Othello, honest. Aye, honest? Iago, my lord, for aught I know. Iago's like, what? Oh, I couldn't possibly know. Othello, what dost thou think? He's like, come on, out with it. Iago, think, my lord? Othello, think, my lord? By heaven, thou echoest me, as if there were some monster in thy thought, too hideous to be shown. Yeah, it's Iago's own thoughts. They're monstrous. Thou dost mean something. I heard thee say even now thou likest not that. When Cassio left my wife, why didst not like? What didst not like? And when I told thee he was of my counsel, meaning in his confidence, in my whole course of wooing thou criedst, indeed? And didst contract and purse thy brows together, as if thou then hadst shut up in thy brain some horrible conceit. If thou dost love me, show me thy thought. Iago, my lord, you know I love you. But not in the ways that you wish, Iago. Okay. Othello, I think thou dost, and for I know thou'rt full of love and honesty. Yeah, these people are so dumb. Come on, see through this idiot. And weightiest thy word, and weighest thy words before thou givest them breath. Therefore these stops of thine fright me the more. For such things in a false disloyal knave are tricks of custom, but in a man that's just, they're close dilations, working from the heart that passion cannot rule. Footnote. I am not obligated to reveal my inner thoughts, something about which even slaves have a choice. So again, this is something that reveals once again was written by a white man, meaning Shakespeare, that Othello is not really sensitive to the plight of slaves, and especially as a person of color, as the text often indicates that he is most likely a black man, that if he was a more dynamic character, a more realistic type of person, he would not be speaking in this manner, and he also would not be a traitor to his home country, perhaps. That's not to say that it's not possible for people to do, but he just is constantly flattened in order to have him be more appealing, whatever that means, to the white colonizer sensibility of Shakespeare's time. Iago. For Michael Cassio, I dare be sworn I think that he is honest. Othello. I think so too. Iago. Men should be what they seem, or those that be not, would they seem none. Footnote. If only those who are not what they seem... Oh wait, I read the wrong footnote above. Whoops. So when Othello was saying they're close dilations, it means involuntary revelations of interior, meaning close-kept secrets. I know that's out of context and probably doesn't make sense now. This footnote. If only those who are not what they seem didn't seem to be what they are not. Oh, like Iago. This is the classic fascist colonizer projection tactic of like, oh, all of these people are disloyal and lying to you. Hee because I'm doing that. Ha ha. Okay. Othello. Certain men should be what they seem. Iago. Why then, I think Cassio's an honest man. Othello. Nay, yet there's more in this. I prithee, speak to me as to thy thinkings, as thou dost ruminate and give thy worst of thoughts to the worst of deeds. Nope. Saying something that's definitely not written. The worst of words. Iago. Good my lord, pardon me. Though I am bound to every act of duty, I am not bound to that all slaves are free to do. So, okay. I am not obligated to reveal my inner thoughts, something about which even slaves have a choice. Okay. So, this doesn't mean that Othello would not be speaking about slaves in an ill manner or a demeaning manner, but here Iago is. This is unsurprising. He is the white supremacist here. He's essentially like, oh, I don't even have some of the freedom that slaves have. That's like, shut up. How about shut up? Utter my thoughts? Why, say they are vile and false? As where's that palace whereunto foul things sometimes intrude not? Who has that breast so pure but some uncleanly apprehensions? Keep leets and law days, and in sessions sit with meditations lawful. So footnote. Illegitimate thoughts meet in court, meaning leets, from time to time, on law days, and debate with legitimate ones. Othello. Thou dost conspire against thy friend, Iago, meaning himself. He's speaking of himself in third person. Othello's like, you're conspiring against me. I'm your friend. If thou but thinkest him wronged, and makest his ear a stranger to thy thoughts. Iago. I do beseech you, though I perchance am vicious in my guess, meaning mistaken, as I confess it is my nature's plague to spy into abuses, and oft my jealousy shapes faults that are not, that your wisdom then, from one that so imperfectly conceits, would take no notice, nor build yourself a trouble out of his scattering, meaning incoherent and unsure observance, it were not for your quiet, nor your good, nor for my manhood, honesty, and wisdom to let you know my thoughts. So he's self-aware in some ways of like, oh, I'm spying into people's intentions, but he's like, trying to demean himself and be like, oh, I'm just like a lowly person that you don't have to trust my opinion. Maybe I'm being too cruel and looking into things too much. Othello, what dost thou mean? Yeah. Iago. Good name in man and woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something, nothing. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. So again, he's like lifting some things that like Othello liked in Cassio of like, oh, he actually cares about honor. He has a sense of integrity. He is wanting to be respected by the people around him. And Iago is like taking some of this language that Cassio was using when Iago responded in turn to those very things and was like, who cares about honor? Like, yeah, clearly you don't, because you're a shitty person. Othello. By heaven, I'll know thy thoughts. Iago. You cannot, if my heart were in your hand, nor shall you whilst 'tis in my custody. Othello. Ha! Iago. Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. So that's a famous phrase, a green-eyed monster. This comes from Shakespeare. Clearly, we're reading Shakespeare, in case that wasn't made apparent, saying that jealousy is a green-eyed monster. Footnote. That tortures as it consumes the heart of the jealous person. That cuckold lives in bliss, who, certain of his fate, loves not his wronger. Meaning, who, knowing it is his fate to be cuckolded, doesn't love his wife. But oh, what damned minutes tells he o'er, what dotes yet doubts, suspects yet fondly loves. Othello. Oh, misery. Iago. Poor and content is rich, and rich enough, but riches fineless is as poor as winter. To him that ever fears he shall be poor. Good God, the souls of all my tribe defend from jealousy. Othello. Why is this? Thinkest thou I'd make a life of jealousy, to follow still the changes of the moon, meaning to renew endlessly, with fresh suspicions? No, to be once in doubt is once to be resolved, to be finally settled. Exchange me for a goat when I shall turn the business of my soul to such exsufflicate and blowed surmises, meaning inflated and blown up surmises, matching thy inference. 'Tis not to make me jealous to say my wife is fair, feeds well, loves company, is free of speech, sings, plays, and dances well. Where virtue is, these are more virtuous, nor from mine own weak merits will I draw the smallest fear or doubt of her revolt, meaning fear of her betrayal. For she had eyes and chose me. No, Iago, I'll see before I doubt. When I doubt, proof. And on the proof, there is no more but this. Away at once with love or jealousy. So he's having like a mature reaction to what's going on. He's like, stop playing around. Tell me what you're actually thinking. You're trying to like sow doubt or whatever. Iago. I am glad of this, for now I shall have reason to show the love and duty that I bear you, with franker spirit. Therefore, as I am bound, receive it from me. I speak not yet of proof. Look to your wife. Observe her well with Cassio. Wear your eyes thus, not jealous, nor secure. I would not have your free and noble nature out of self-bounty be abused. Footnote. Be deceived on account of your own goodness. Look to it. I know our country disposition well. In Venice they do not let God see the pranks. They dare not show their husbands. Their best conscience is not to leave it undone, but keep it unknown. Othello. Dost thou say so? Iago. She did deceive her father marrying you, and when she seemed to shake and fear your looks, she loved them most. And so she did. Why, go to then. Meaning that's it. She's that so young could give out such a seeming, to seal her father's eyes up close as oak. Meaning, to cover, meaning seal or blind, her father's eyes as tightly as oak. He thought 'twas witchcraft. but I am much to blame. I humbly do beseech you of your pardon, for too much loving you. So, Iago is just continuing to be a snake. He's using all of these, like, manipulation tactics to be like, oh, why would you listen to me? I just, like, happen to observe this, but maybe I'm being mean. I don't want to be mean, but okay, I guess I'll tell you. And, like, you're just, like, too kind to even, like, understand, like, anyone possibly having bad intentions. Uh-oh, someone like me. Anyway. This continues for a bit. If I can turn the page. Okay, I'm gonna read until Iago exits, because thank God we need him out of this place. And then we'll save the rest for tomorrow. Othello. I am bound to thee forever. Iago. I see this hath a little dashed your spirits. Not a jot, not a jot. Which it's like, oh, he's saying that your wife may not care about you that much. Of course that's going to hurt his feelings. Iago. In faith, I fear it has. I hope you will consider what is spoke comes from my love. But I do see you're moved. I am to pray you not to strain my speech to grosser issues, nor larger reach than to suspicion. So he's like, but don't let your imagination get away with you. Wink, wink. Othello. I will not. Iago. Should you do so, my lord, my speech should fall into such vile success, which my thoughts aimed not. Cassio's my worthy friend. My lord, I see you're moved. No, not much moved. I do not think but Desdemona's honest. So, he's starting to show that he has doubts in Desdemona. It's like you would think, maybe go talk to her. I don't know, bitch. Maybe, like, talk to your wife and see if this is all true instead of listening to Iago, that idiot. Iago. Long live she so, and long live you to think so. He is so awful. And yet how nature erring from itself. Aye, there's the point, as to be bold with you, not to affect many proposed matches. Of her own clime, complexion, and degree, whereto we see in all things nature tends. For one may smell in such a will most rank, foul disproportions, thoughts unnatural. But pardon me, I do not in position distinctly speak of her, though I may fear her will recoiling to her better judgment, may fall to match you with her country forms, and happily repent. Footnote, may happen to compare you with Venetian standards. And this is very threatening to Iago, because he's considered a foreigner. Othello. Farewell, farewell. If more thou dost perceive, let me know more. Set on thy wife to observe. Leave me, Iago. So he's like, watch your own wife while you're at it. Iago. Going. That's the stage direction. Going. My lord, I take my leave. Othello. Why did I marry? This honest creature doubtless sees and knows more, much more than he unfolds. So now, instead of talking to Desdemona, he was like, well, I think I'm gonna ruminate on this. Iago knows a lot. I'll trust him. Iago, returning. No, we didn't want you back. Okay, fine. My lord, I would I might entreat your honor to scan this thing no farther. Leave it to time. Although 'tis fit that Cassio have its place, for sure he fills that... Oh, whoops, I skipped a line. For sure he fills it up with great ability. Yet if you please to hold him off a while, you shall by that perceive him and his means. Footnote. Method for restoring himself to favor. So he's also trying to sow doubt and say, like, don't let Cassio get back in your good graces. You should doubt him as well. Note if your lady strain his entertainment, meaning urge his reception, with any strong or vehement importunity. Much will be seen in that. In the meantime, let me be thought too busy in my fears, as worthy cause I have to fear I am, and hold her free, I do beseech your honor. Meaning, believe her to be innocent. Othello, fear not my government. He's like, fear not about my own conduct. Iago, I, once more, take my leave. And then he leaves. Thank God. Okay, that's where we'll stop. So Iago, once again, he understands that Desdemona is an ally of Cassio, and he even encouraged Cassio to be talking to Desdemona and be like, oh, she's a good ally for you. You need to be talking about this. And now he's going to say, like, or he just said, like, if she's being, like, overly emphatic about defending Cassio to you, you should be suspicious. That's all I have to say, but don't look too much into it, because, like, I'm just telling you what I observe. My English class read Othello, and I remember Iago being annoying. Yeah, he's so fucking annoying. And, there is a play called Desdemona that Toni Morrison wrote that I am wanting to read. I need to get that book. I need to order it. Because Iago is not in it at all. And she was like, that was intentional. He's annoying and he talks about people's bodies too much. It's like, yeah, he does. He's gross. So speaking of Toni Morrison, we are going to continue with Banned Book Club tomorrow. We read until page 46, and we are going to the end of the chapter, I believe. Yes. So this is before we get to the section of winter. Dee-dee-dee-dee. So we'll talk about this reading. I'll provide some background, and we will hear from people who are providing some literary analysis tomorrow, if you are interested in joining in on the reading. Okay, that's going to be it for me today, but thank you all for being here. Is there someone that we could be rating? Let me see. Well, maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Okay. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.